Well, there's all of that in the beginning. There's, the anger, which to me, which comes out of a place of fear. So anger is the action to the feeling or the emotion of fear. So there's anger, and then there's fear, and then there's no. Why would I forgive him? Then so I'm thinking in my mind, by forgiving him then he'll walk away being like, cool, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Took care of that. And, remembering parts of what happened that night and sort of how, it's so hard to talk about what he's saying, but they're so brutal. And there was so much violence and so much, not just from Tim, I mean, there were other people that participated, but there was just sort of this lack of humanity, I guess is the best way to put it, towards this little kid. So it's like, why would I want him to walk away feeling okay about that? Or he's off the hook now. And so I certainly didn't think of building a relationship with him. I realized that this is back in my life for a reason. Things come back around, and it's the opportunity for you to deal with them at that point. And if you don't, then it'll come back around again. I mean, you're given a certain amount of opportunities to face these things in your past and to do something different with them than you had before. So since I buried it, stuffed it down, and then it dictated my life and my actions towards others, here was an opportunity to change the outcome of not what Tim did, but how I am dictating or allowing this to dictate my life. And my mode of operation was from a place of fear. I feared what people thought of me when I would walk down the street or when I would stand in a room. I would be almost obsessed with whether do they know I'm gay? Should I tell them I'm gay? Do they care? Do they not care? Am I dressed right? For the victim or the surviving person, I really think that there's two very different distinctions. So for the victim is that we build a cage around ourselves, a cage of fear, which we believe is protecting us from future events happening. Therefore, we protect ourselves, and it's kind of like, I need you to stay away from me. And your life is constantly battling two different things. It's like, yes, I want a hug, don't touch me. I really need you to ask me how I'm doing, don't talk to me. And that is all built into that cage that we've built around ourselves to protect ourselves. And everything is protected, at least we believe that. And really what we're doing is slowly dying. We're slowly killing off our spirit, we're slowly killing off our souls, because we're so protected that we're not allowing anything else in. And so for me, the forgiveness is the unlocking of that, and being free and completely free, and moving from, and this is the important distinction, from being the victim of an incident motivated by hate to being a survivor of an incident motivated by hate. Victim has a negative connotation, survivor is the positive of that. I survived something, I now come from a place of strength. I'm a victim that came from a place of weakness.
I too had a lot of that negative, self-thought. And I can't talk about other people, but I do assume that it's common with others as well. But initially, when we first got thrown together into this thing, I didn't want to have any part of it. And I did attempt to minimize everything and to minimize my part, to make up excuses. Oh, I was only 17 years old, I was drinking, I was a follower, all this other sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, I have to own my behavior and my actions. I came to the Museum of Tolerance in the early 2000s. I was already on my journey away from the extremist lifestyle, and during that period I found myself in these situations where I was exposed to the real world, and all the propaganda and delusional mindset that comes along with being involved with that sort of thing I would see the real world, and then I would go back into that delusional world. So the contrast between the two was very apparent in short periods of time, so it was easier to identify. And when I started to associate myself and socialize with people from different backgrounds, started to trust people from different ethnicities, to whereas before they were the perceived enemy. And of course, perception is everything. If you perceive they're the enemy, you're not going to engage with them in a positive manner. And so that was the majority of what I had done in the past. But then these people were accepting of me. When Matthew and I first connected, we worked on a book also. And we spoke to the author, and we had these interviews, and it brought up a lot of stuff that I hadn't dealt with. And, you know, I was like, oh, I see that. No wonder. You know, and so there was these later moments of clarity. And it is an ongoing thing, and it's a daily thing. I personally have to do a lot of inner self-work, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through speaking with my mentors, or sometimes picking up the phone and talking to Matthew. But it definitely is an ongoing thing, and it probably will be till the day that I die. And once you put it on the table and recognize it and acknowledge it, that's the point where you can take it either way. You can ignore it, where in my case, for quite a while, it festered and became toxic to the point where I couldn't deal with it anymore. So I had to do something to release that. And it was stepping up to the plate. It was scary, but at that time in my life, and the way that I attempt to live my life is to keep my side of the street clean. When I'm wrong, I admit it, and you get it done, you get it over with. Whether or not he accepted my apology or not was not necessarily, I wouldn't say I didn't care, but it wasn't my business. My main motivation was to get that toxic negativity out of me and to not let that festering process take place, because it becomes horrible.
The process of forgiveness, I never sat down with Tim. So what you'll see in a lot of stories is that they sit down face to face and they have this conversation of forgiving and moving on, and a lot. That didn't happen. And what happened is that someone said at a presentation, I think that's what you're referring to,
right,
openly asked, they said, have you been able to forgive Tim and move forward? And that's when I said, yes, absolutely, which is where he heard it for the first time. There's a grieving process in forgiveness because you're so identified by the events that took place that when you forgive and let that part go, that's part of the identity, which is also like part of you.
Right.
And you're sort of mourning the loss of this person or part of you that you've known for so long. And that's actually a really beautiful thing. When part of this whole thing is understanding why someone decides to do something, understanding kind of like the why behind Tim and the other guys sort of making that moment or that decision or that choice, and why me kind of thing. But with my mom, it was like, why did she do it? Where did she, in her mind and spirit, say it's okay to throw your child out? And of course, I never was able to talk to my mom about it, but speaking to one of the brothers I do talk to, we kind of went over it and realizing that my mom was raised at a time where the information that was out there was only that homosexuality was a deviant behavior that was psychological, that it could be cured, and left untreated, they become predators and prey on small children. And my mom had a house of, we were 7 kids.